All right, yeah, cool. Hola, everyone. I'm Alex, and today I'm going to be talking about flamenco, which is one of the most iconic and meaningful parts of Spanish culture. So, first, let me clear something up. So, a lot of people will hear flamenco and they'll think it's saying flamingo, which is like the pink bird, but it's actually flamenco and it's a form of dance. So, it's very much associated with Spain and the southern region of Andalusia, and it's known for being very emotional and expressive. But as I would argue, flamenco actually represents centuries of identity shaped by four major influences: Romani, Arab, Jewish, and Spanish culture. But before I break all of that down, I'll explain what flamenco actually is. So it's a very dramatic dance, but it's just as much about singing and music. So flamenco is intense, passionate, and very expressive. It also uses four main elements: cante, which is singing; baile, which is dancing; toque, which is guitar; and compás, which is the rhythm. Historically, flamenco was used to express identity and emotion, everything from suffering to resilience to joy. UNESCO even recognized it as intangible cultural heritage in 2010. And a fun fact is that a 2015 study found that even tourists who had never seen flamenco or experienced it at all before ended up loving it and said it was one of their favorite parts about Spain. So, where does flamenco come from? Well, obviously Spain, but it didn't develop just because of Spain. Its roots are a mix of Romani, Arab, Jewish, and Spanish cultures, as I mentioned earlier. Andalusia specifically became a massive cultural melting pot between the 15th and 18th centuries because people passed through there on their way to America. Since everyone came through that same region, their cultures all kind of blended, and this blending created flamenco. So let me dig into those roots real quick. So, the Romani people, also known as the Gitano people, arrived in Spain in the 1400s. They brought musical traditions that focused on raw emotion, improvisation, and storytelling. Because the Romani people went through centuries of persecution, their music carried themes like pain, migration, and survival. And this became the foundation for Cante Hondo, or the deep song, which is known for its intense vocal cries called queillos. And just a quick clarification is that the Romani people are not the Roman people. They are a nomadic group who eventually would migrate to Romania from India, not the Roman people, even though it's a very easy mix up to have. Next, the Arab people. They lived in Spain for almost 800 years, from 711 AD to 1492. Their music used melismatic singing, which is like stretching lots of notes on one syllable, microtonal scales, heavily ornamented melodies, and very complex percussion based rhythms. And these sounds gave flamenco its haunting, emotional feel, almost like a lot of Middle Eastern music. Next, the Jewish people. So, Jewish communities actually lived in Spain for over 1,000 years before their expulsion in 1492, and their musical traditions used lament style chanting, minor tonalities, ornamented melodies, and call and response singing. These show up in tons of flamenco's palos, especially the ones that sound mournful or spiritual. Finally, the most obvious route, the Spanish people. So the Spanish influence is a little different. Instead of shaping the sound a lot, they shaped a lot of the look and performance aspects of flamenco. So things are like the ruffled dresses, shawls, and castanets. They all come from Andalusian folk culture. Also, a lot of the posture, footwork, and patterns of the dance come from Andalusia, which is very interesting. Also, the guitar itself that is used in flamenco is the Spanish guitar. So that shows a bit deeper how they didn't really influence the um, music as much, but they did have a big impact still. So, where do all of these kind of get important? Well, firstly, cante is where the four cultures mix the most. So the emotional intensity comes from the Romani people, the winding melodies come from the Arab people, the mournful chant like sound comes from the Jewish, and the structure of the songs, like fandangos and tonas, come from Spanish folk music. So the singing alone is basically the four cultures all woven together. Then baile, or the dancing, also blends everything. So the dramatic storytelling comes from Romani performance. The curved arm movements and fluid gestures reflect Arab aesthetics. The slow ritual motions in certain styles echo Jewish traditions, and the strong footwork and tapping come from Spanish folk dance. It is quite literally a combination of expression from all four groups. Next, toque, um, the improvisation and emotional style connect back to Romani. The scales and ornamentation come from the Arab. Uh, I couldn't find anything for the Jewish, but as similar to the last ones, you can assume that a lot of the lament and sadness in certain songs comes from those people, and then the instrument itself, along with rasguado, which is strumming, and picado, which is fast finger work, come from the Spanish folk traditions of playing the guitar. Um, Next, compás. Uh, it might be the most blended part. I know I said that cante was, but this one, it's a direct product of the four cultures. So the complex 12 beat patterns come from the Arab rhythmic traditions. The instinctive clapping and footwork reflect Romani rhythm, and some of the slow, steady patterns reflect the Jewish chanting styles. And finally, the castanets and lively dance rhythms all come from Spanish folk culture, which basically shows how compas is like all four cultures like functioning all at once, which is very awesome. But why is it so important today? Well, it's kind of part of daily life. Essentially, flamenco isn't something that's just performed on a stage, but a living tradition in Spain. So families will gather together for what's known as juergas, which is they're essentially flamenco nights. Like entire neighborhoods will host performances during festivals, but also families will just like gather to do it, which is really cool. And towns like Seville, Cadiz, and Jerez all have their own styles and traditions, which is also interesting. Even outside of Andalusia, flamenco is seen as a national symbol of Spain. And continuing that, like why it's important today, well, it reflects centuries of identity, emotion, and resilience. Most people think Spanish culture, flamenco, or dancing in general is one of the first things that'll come to mind, and it's also very important economically and socially. So it influences tourism, fashion, Spanish music, and cultural institutions. UNESCO's recognition in 2010 only furthers that detail. So in summary, flamenco is a very, very powerful expression of Andalusian identity that also mixes Romani, Arab, Jewish, and Spanish influences in all four of its main components. These influences have shaped both Spanish culture and the global image of Spain, and overall, flamenco is an extremely important tradition in Spanish culture. Thank you.